Hey guys, Loic here. We're going to do a tour of the van I've been building for the last 3 years. It's quite a small van, so we've had to get creative with how we're using the space, but we've managed to fit in 2 kitchens, an outdoor shower, an extending bed, and a whole bunch of storage. Let's get into it. Alrighty, so we'll get started with the kitchen area. It looks like a pretty standard kitchen because it mostly is. This is a great practical space for when it's raining and you can't cook on the outdoor kitchen. It's got tons of countertop area and it's quite handy to put a butane stove and reheat a meal or cook something simple. We've got an extraction fan overhead which can suck air out or push air in. The bench height is a bit lower so that you can sit down and use it rather than stand up, because I don't have the ability to stand up in this van. The good thing about it though is it's got a ton of sink space, so I can put 2 days worth of dirty dishes in there and then do them all at once, all in the name of conserving water, of course. Speaking of water, it runs off a pump that switches on automatically when it notices a difference in the pressure. You can turn the pump off altogether from this little switch up here. I've only got 50 litres of water underneath the van, but I haven't needed more than that, so I'm quite happy with that amount. If you're going to live in this full time, you'd probably want to have another 50 litres. It goes down under the car into a little grey water tank that we attached, and you can put this faucet down into the sink so that when you're driving you don't have water dripping around the place. Above we have a massive amount of storage, so these all just spring into place and you can store all your normal pantry supplies. It's looking pretty sad and empty in there at the moment, but that's because we're cleaning the van. Over here we have full length drawers. They're soft close and they go all the way back. Then we have an 85 litre fridge. This thing is an absolute beast. It's super efficient and it has a little freezer in there as well. So on a hot summer's day, you can pull up and have an ice cream, which is pretty luxurious if you ask me. Above here, we've got a whole bunch of clothing and bedding storage. Usually we wouldn't have the bedding in here, it would be on the bed, but we're going to show you how the bed actually works. You can fit a ton of stuff in there. I'm not touching the back and my whole arm's in there. So you can easily fit 2 people's clothes in there. The more stuff you put in here, the better the insulation in this van. Now, you'll notice here we have this big dividing panel. I hesitated for a long time as to whether or not to put it in, and I decided to go ahead with it because it blocks off the front from the back and allows you to cool the front when you're driving with the aircon a lot more efficiently. It also prevents you from heating up the van when it's a hot day because all the heat is trapped in the front of the van. It kind of limits the amount of space that you have, but it's been very, very useful, especially in Australia where we have really, really hot days. And then here we have the brains of the operation. This is where the electrical system for the van is. If I open up the side of the van and push it open, you can see this whole panel flips down and gives access to our electrical system. Under the passenger seat, we've got this 200 amp hour lithium ion battery, which is way more than I'll ever need on this van. This then clips up into place like that. And then when you don't need to access your electrical system, you don't have the eyesore of having it visible. Moving on to the bed area, you'll notice that this bed is quite a small bed. It's only 2/3 the length of a normal bed, but that's easily resolved with this extension that pulls out. And this little foam section fits into place. From head to toe, this is 2 meters 10. So you can fit quite tall people in here and you can actually fit 2 people side by side. It's not a double bed, but it's still quite comfortable to sleep 2 people, so long as you know the person you're sleeping with quite well. This is run off a heavy duty drawer. So I can sit here and bounce and it's not going to go anywhere, even though there's no support directly under it. That took a bit of engineering and trial and error, but I'm very happy with how it's worked out. This is all handmade by my mum. Thank you, Mum. So the bed then closes up and enters into the day mode. Like this. This couch is quite comfy for working on your laptop or watching the surf. You can easily fit 2 people in here. I looked at a design book to see what the perfect angle was going to be for this storage box, which I'll show you now. So this flips over to the other side, locks underneath the cabinet unit. And then here you've got a whole bunch of storage that opens up and you can fit a ton of clothes. I've never filled this all the way up. This bottom panel here is removable and that gives access to the electrical system out the back and access to the big surfboard storage box underneath. So close that up. All right, on the top of the backrest for the couch, you'll notice some extra little nooks where you can put stuff in here and this lip prevents it from falling out. Over the bed area, we have this little overhead cabinet, which is very similar to the one in the kitchen. It's just a little bit smaller. It's also got all of the electrical system for the front of the van. These switches turn on the lights, and so does this one. It's actually a dimmable switch. And then I've got a little fairy light above, which I haven't yet put around the van, but that's going to be quite nice for camping trips. On the top here, we've got some spare switches, which I haven't connected to anything yet. But when I built the van, I ran extra cables so that it was a bit more future-proof. We have the normal USBs, so 2 USB-As, and then a cigarette lighter up here. Other appliances in here, we have the electric fan at the back. So if you crack the door open and run that fan with this big overhead fan, you can get a fair bit of airflow pumping through this fan, which is really nice on hot days. Underneath the bed systems, you obviously have the extension here with a little lip that prevents the mattress from flying out when you hit the brakes. But similarly, underneath, we also have a lip holding in these 2 54-litre crates. This goes all the way to the back. Once these are all removed, you maintain use of the full length of the van. And then under the bed box, we've got just some soft closed drawers. On the right hand side here, we have a tunnel, which was a bit of an awkward spot initially, but it's actually proven to be quite handy. You can put a whole bunch of camping chairs or tripods or anything that's kind of awkward and long to store. Behind me, we have what looks to be a waste of space, but it's actually the end of the surf box. This surf box goes all the way underneath the back of the couch, all the way to the back, and has access for a whole bunch of storage. I'll show you that when we go around to the back. All right, moving to the back of the van, we have these big opening barn doors. And like that. You'll notice above here we have these flexible lights, which are quite handy because they can be positioned on top of the kitchen area. So this fold-out table goes like that. It can either be positioned on this side, or if you need someone to help you chop up some vegetables, you can position it on this side. It's also possible to take it inside the van and pop it on the lip of the bed to use as a laptop desk or extra bench space. This stove opens up, obviously, and then you've got a whole bunch of storage out here. Pack it up. Above it, you have 1.2 meters of storage, so it's really long, pretty solid. For storage that you want to take out, often we have these big tubs. These are 54-litre tubs that fit under the bed, and that gives you access to a ton of storage. But the other cool thing is that it gives you access to the full length of the van. So if you needed to carry some lumber, you can still use this as a proper van. On this side, we have the surf box, so it'll comfortably hold 3 surfboards up to 6'2". Moving up, we have the power port. So we've got the outdoor light switches here, and then a cigarette lighter, and then some USB ports. There are also other USB ports on these lights here. You also have this fan out here that you can switch on when you're cooking out here, and then that prevents the wafting garlic smell from filling the van. We've just got the water system down here. So what we do is we grab this hose shower and connect it, and it goes anywhere where there's exposed metal. You'll also notice an extensive use of magnets in this van. So I grab these little magnets and I use them to hang up my clothes wherever I need them to hang and dry. And that prevents me from needing a clothing line. I've not seen anyone do that, which I don't understand, because these things are the best. They cost nothing and they save you so much hassle. I used to use them for a blind system, but I've since upgraded to something a bit more fancy. These blackout blinds that my mum kindly made, thank you mum, again, connect into place like this. And it well, so when you're in the van sleeping and those things are on, there's no light that comes in. And it also means that you don't have people looking inside of the van, so you feel a bit more private, especially because there's no windows. You can park up anywhere and no one can see into the van, no one can tell that you're camping there. So it means that over the last 8 months that I've been using it, nobody has knocked on my door saying, you got to move on because you're not allowed to sleep here. It just looks like a tradie van from the outside. So after spending 6 months looking for a van, I've finally decided it was time to execute, and I went on a couple of online auction sites around Christmas time and found this beautiful van. This van is a Ford Transit 2010 model, mid-wheel, mid-roof van. It had 200,000 kilometres when I got it. I got it at auction for just under $8,000 to get it on the road. The van itself cost me $6,300, but then you have to add taxes and fees on top of that. Usually a van like this would cost about $15,000, give or take. I ended up spending just under $20,000 to actually build out the van, which is expensive, but it's not as expensive as what it could get. So that's $20,000 with the fit out and the actual van itself, with the most expensive part being the electrical component, which includes the solar panels, the batteries, the chargers, all the cables, paying someone to fit it properly. It was my first time dealing with 12 volt and I wanted to make sure that I didn't stuff it up. And then all of the appliances as well, which were expensive. I have a full list of everything that I used in the blog post that's linked in the description. So if you're curious on the actual models of everything that I used, you can access it all on that blog post. I had grand plans of this being my builder era, where I was just going to do all the work on my own without any help from anyone. And it turned out that I was just stretching myself way too thin. I had university, work, and by the time I traveled to and from all of that, I didn't have the skills or the time to put towards doing the whole van myself. I did a lot of it on my own, but I needed help. And that's okay. I ended up going online and finding all the different van builders in Sydney, and I called them up and said, hey, any chance you can lend me some space and the tools to do this job? And most of them said no, except for the people at Vanderbilt, who have been absolutely extraordinary. They've helped me out throughout the whole process. They gave me a place to build my van. They gave me the knowledge. They lent me their tools. And lastly, they became really good friends. And I'm very grateful for their help throughout this whole process. I put their link in the description. This is not paid, but they've been very nice to me, and the work that they do is phenomenal. All right, now I'm going to jump into answering some questions from the people on social media. When I posted some short videos, I got absolutely destroyed in the comment section saying, why would you buy a mid-roof van? Or your neck's going to kill you, da 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 da. But there was a bit of rationale to that decision, and I'm here to justify it to you now. The mid-roof vans are not for everyone. I chose it because I knew that I was going to be driving a lot for university placements, and that I wanted to be able to park anywhere in the city and use it as a big car instead of a full-on van with a high roof. And so if you're living out of the van, it's not that much of a problem. Most of the day is spent out of the van. That's the whole point of living the van life, is that you're living out of the van, not in the van. So for me, it wasn't an issue, but if you're a bit older or you have mobility issues, probably the tall van is what you want. It's uncomfortable to spend a lot of time standing up with your neck bent over, but the outdoor kitchen is what gets used most of the time, and you're usually in the van when you're sleeping or getting changed. The second question I got on social media is, are there any toilets? And the answer is no, there are no toilets on board this vessel. However, I lived in it for a year doing university placements, and I didn't really have any issues because in Australia, we're lucky enough to have a lot of public facilities that anyone can use. And then if those weren't available, I had access to a 24-hour gym. And if that wasn't available, I'm lucky enough to be a guy, and it's a bit easier to go to the bathroom as a guy. We'll put it like that. Another question I got was, is it worth it? It's a lot of time, it's a lot of money, and it's a lot of stress. The answer is, financially, no, it's probably not worth it. However, I learned a ton of skills doing this, and I'm very grateful that I did it. It was an overwhelming project, and it took way longer and was more expensive than what I thought it was going to be, but I would do it again in a heartbeat, and I probably will be doing it again. It was a very good learning experience. The third question I got a lot was, why does the fridge open the wrong way? It's very annoying to a lot of people, and it was annoying to me too, but the hinges, the way the hinges work, don't function properly. The door doesn't open when you put it against the bulkhead. So it's what it is. First van, you're going to make mistakes. That's one of them. The other thing I get asked a lot is, how am I dealing with having gas in the van? And the short answer is, I'm not. I'm using butane stoves in the van, except for 1 or 2 camping trips. The butane stoves are easy to pack. You can have a few of them. They don't take a whole lot of space, and also legally it's a lot easier to carry butane bottles in the van than the gas canister, which needs to have proper filtration and in order for it to be legal. It's a bit of a process. Check your local laws, but most of the time butane is going to be more than enough for you. The other question I get a lot is, what do you do when it's raining outside and you can't use the outdoor kitchen? It doesn't rain in Australia, ever. That's it. No problem. No, seriously, it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. You just cook inside, or you use the food that you have in the fridge, or you get takeout, or there's about 1 million other solutions than using the outdoor kitchen. You have options. You have plenty of options. The other question I get a lot at the moment is, what is the bare minimum equipment that you need to be able to start the van build process? And I would say there's not a whole lot, but good tools do help a fair amount. I would get a jigsaw, a track saw, cordless drills. I would also get a YouTube account so that you can figure out all your problems and solve them, and a router. Most people can get away without using a router, but I think it makes the whole van a little bit nicer if you can curve the edges and not have sharp, pointy things in throughout your van. And lastly, space. make sure you have space and time to build this out. I was doing it in the driveway and it was hell. It was setting up every day, packing up every day, dealing with neighbors that complain, dealing with dust that goes everywhere. Make sure you have a dedicated space where you can just leave your stuff overnight and build it without any issues. Alrighty guys, that's the end of the van tour. I hope you got some ideas. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. And I've also got a full breakdown of the build and with all the components that I've used on my website. So if you click the top link in the description, it'll take you straight there. Happy travels. You know.